Hello, I'm Emma Maynard. I'm from the School of Education and Sociology, and I'm a Senior Lecturer and Course Leader for the MSc Educational Leadership and Management. So I'm sure you have lots of questions that you want to know about this course. What I'm going to do in this brief presentation is just to take you through the main features of the MSc to help you figure out if it's the right one for you. Obviously, I'm very happy to talk to people, and sometimes that's a nicer way to get to know something about the course and the staff team and the general approach. It's actually a multi-layered MSc, so if you don't want to think about doing the whole MSc right now, you can start with the intention of doing the postgrad certificate or the postgrad diploma or the full MSc. If you decide to do the MSc and then decide that actually you want to stop and do something else, then you can exit with either of those other slightly lower qualifications, the PG Cert or the PG Dip. Now, the difference between those things is just about volume. The thing that distinguishes the MSc from everything else is that you do a research project, which is an exciting opportunity, which I'll explain about in a few minutes. The PG Cert and the PG Dip simply mean that you do less of the same level. And so our entry expectations is the same for all of the different strands. It's about your ability to study at master's level. And so for that reason, we want to see the equivalent of a 2-1 in a first degree and also a good score in English, in the IELTS English, if English is a second language for you. Some of our students come already having done some master's level training, and so we know that they are able to study at that level. But the majority will be doing master's level study for the first time. So please don't be daunted. We're here to help you achieve that level. That's part of what we do best. There are a range of different ways in which you can undertake the MSc. You can be with us full-time on campus or as a part-time student, distance learning. So there are a number of different routes that you can take. And because of that, we have a huge cohort that are actually from all over the world. And I'll explain how the teaching and assessment works with such a wide spread of colleagues globally. For those of you in the UK in employed positions, we also have the degree apprenticeship route, and that of course means that you can tap into the all-important funding. There's a little bit about that that's different. I'll explain about that shortly. And lastly, we have entry points in September for all of the streams, and for the distance learning, there is an additional entrance point in January. So you can decide when is best for you to start, and the majority of our students start in September, but there is that January intake for distance learners. So what else can I tell you about it? Well, I've been in the School of Education and Sociology for 10 years now, so I've seen it grow from a really small school to a really big school. We have a huge suite of education-based programs. Some of them are professionally based with the initial teacher training, and others are more general academic qualifications, which have a blend of multi-agency approaches about learning, teaching, and a lot around childhood studies, which is a number of our undergraduate degrees. We also have our sociology arm to the school, and so we have become a much more multidisciplinary school than we were, which is a really exciting, vibrant way to be. We have a key role in developments around education in the city and beyond because of our position within the university. So we're large and well established at the MSc, and we have an international cohort every year. There's usually around 200 students studying on this MSc programme through those various different streams. And part of that is reflected in the way we bring together global and cultural perspectives in co-constructing concepts of school leadership and management. What is it that we see from international examples? How do we understand that as an international group of colleagues working to develop further expertise in this field? If you study the full MSc, you will do 4 taught modules, studied either on the campus or as a distance learner, and then a research project which is supervised on a one-to-one basis with an academic supervisor. You will be matched and then do your dissertation. If you were a full-time student, that would run from January through to September. So about 9 months for a full-time student, about double that for a part-time student. The type of students we attract current leaders and many future leaders in education. We have people coming who are inspired to develop their own school in an overseas community, maybe rural areas, or to develop a different arm of education in their home countries. We are also looking for people who are currently leading and want to create more academic knowledge of their existing expertise. And so the vast majority of the time, we're looking at our cohort as being existing experts, and it creates this really exciting, vibrant community of practice. Many of our students, of course, are looking for ways to support their career development and progression. And some people take the option of the research project as an opportunity to really think about what's needed in their own school or institution, or within their cluster of schools, for example. Now, I know I keep saying schools, but we must also remember that not all of our students are based in schools or have teaching roles. We have students who come to us from HR backgrounds in schools, and also people who lead learning in other parts of the sector, for example, colleagues in the NHS, colleagues in higher education sometimes too. So there is a mixed community of who we are, but everybody has an interest in learning and developing learning in their place of work, whether that's with children or, more often than not, with the MSc, with colleagues, and actually leading the way in which learning is delivered. So let's have a look at your modules then. This is basically the same order regardless of where you, the stream that you join on. So we look at human resource management. So there's a very practical element to the MSc where we are teaching you the underpinning aspects that help a learning institution to run effectively. And so a lot of that with human resource management. Who are your staff? How do you know your staff? How do you develop your staff? And how do you budget and plan for the year ahead? Our research methods in education is about preparing you for your research project. We know that is a really daunting prospect for lots of students, and we need to spend time actually thinking about what we're most inspired by and how we actually develop a question around that area that we might be passionate in. That takes time and nurturing, and we also need to think about how we're going to do that research most effectively. So we give plenty of time to that, and at the end of that module you will come out with a research proposal that then leads into your dissertation. You will also be doing decision making in education, or unless you are a degree apprenticeship student, you can opt to do education in a global context. The degree apprenticeship students don't have that option choice. They have to do decision making in education, and that's in order to meet the requirements of the degree apprenticeship. So those two there are also about, how do you make strategic decisions? And obviously education in a global context is about the global context. What are the differences in looking internationally at different models of learning and education, the different ways in which schools are led, and how do we co-construct ideas about the most optimal learning environment for children and adults. You then have leadership, strategy and policy. So again, looking at examples of how learning and teaching is led, the expectation and the models of leadership. So how is it that we actually deliver leadership and get everybody in a co-created ethos within a school, and so on and so forth? What are the different models? How do different people approach it? And what are we there to critique as well? So your dissertation is worth twice the weight of any of those other modules. So those four modules that I've highlighted to you are all worth 30 credits. Your dissertation is worth 60 credits. And this is the part that makes the programme an MSc. You will be matched with a supervisor who will then work with you through from your proposal, which they will assess, right the way through to you completing your dissertation. So it's a lovely relationship. It's one where you work on a one-to-one. You discuss your points, you develop a concept with your supervisor, and he or she will be able to help you shape and become a more critical expert in your field. Okay. I'm sure everybody wants to know about teaching and assessment. You know, how on earth are you actually going to get through this thing? Well, there are several strands to tell you about. One, that it's delivered across the full year. So we start in September, and if you're doing full-time, you will finish your MSc teaching in the end of July to submit your dissertation a little bit after that. So teaching runs from September to the end of July. Our part-time students will study one module at a time, and our full-time students 2 modules at a time. So for example, in our September to December teaching block, that's teaching block 1, if you were full-time, you would do human resources and research methods. You'd then go on to either decision making or education in a global context. And in the summer, you would do leadership, policy and strategy. Those last 2 would see your dissertation continue with you throughout. If you're going to study with us as a distance learner, material is prepared for you and you access it in your own time and time zone, critically, because of that international profile that we have for our students. But there are also some opportunities that are scheduled in a live space for students to come together, have seminar discussions and forums running throughout the modules. We must be clear, though, that the live spaces, because of the time zone, are far, far less than the prepared material that's there for you. The forums continue, and I frequently see comments coming up through my email, and we all engage with that as a staff team. People responding to questions, posting ideas, asking questions. So that nature of it is available and accessible to you all time. Our campus-based students, our teaching is at a twilight session to accommodate your working hours. So 4:30 till 7:30, either once or twice a week. There is an exception for our full-time campus-based students where, for example, this year there's a 2-hour schedule on a Wednesday afternoon, sort of 1 till 3. So we make sure that if you're working, you can access this in twilight hours rather than in the middle of the working day. And assessment is mainly by written essay with some presentations and a practical finance task in one of those modules as well. But the vast majority is about writing longer essays, and that means that you must be willing to immerse yourself in reading and, more importantly than anything, reflecting on reading. One thing we really encourage our students to do is to be led by the reading that they're doing. It's very tempting when you come with lots of practical practice experience that you have the ideas and then you want to go and find the evidence for your argument. We like you to flip it. We like you to go and discover and explore the reading and develop your argument from that. So it's coming away from what we have known originally as instinctive, practice-based professional people, and come into an academic space where we're critical, we're exploring and we're